Alright, so here is a little bit of a different video from the norm. I've actually just borrowed a press car from Lotus Japan. This is the new Emira V6. So this is kind of like more GT version of the brand new Lotus sports car. So this car replaces the Evora and also the Elise and Exige. So basically Lotus right now only produces one car, which is a bit of a interesting decision, I have to say. So I'm trying to figure out what this car really means for the brand, where they're trying to take it, and if any of that kind of Lotus still exists in these cars. I mean, you know, Lotus used to be all about driving, driver's feel, satisfaction, and pinpoint accuracy, focus on lightness. So basically trying to understand what this car is all about. So we are in the mountains above Nikko, up in Touge. It's an interesting day. We're in the middle of summer, but it's cool and raining, and we're literally sitting in clouds right now. We're gonna take the car out for a blast, try to figure out what it's all about. I've spent a couple of days with the car already. So yeah, let's try and understand what the Emira or Emira is all about. Okay, so let's set off in the Emira V6. And first thing you need to do is give two little tugs on this drive mode button to get you into sport. That instantly gives a little bit more of a sharper response to the throttle. And as you probably noticed, the exhaust actually sounds a bit louder. And then with a pull of one of the paddles, you activate manual and you're ready to go. You can always hear that supercharger as soon as you prod the throttle. It's pretty instant response, although I have noticed the gears are exceptionally long. It's definitely made for cruising on the highway and kind of faster roads. It would be so much better with shorter gears to kind of get the most out of that instant torque the V6 develops. Braking, I have pretty much no issues here. I think the pedal feel is spot on, as with every Lotus. Lots of feedback, lots of biting. So another issue I've noticed is that the transmission has a bit too much crawl at lower speed. So when you're trying to actuate the brakes and kind of get around town during parking, it's a bit hard to keep the car smooth. So that's an issue for sure. But aside from that, the brakes are very powerful, very strong, and with little fade when you're kind of pushing on kind of like winding roads like today. Like I was mentioning before, the car runs 245s and 295 Goodyear Eagle F1s. There's so much grip even in the wet. Maybe too much. Like, we love the car to kind of move around a little bit more, but hopefully that will come with slightly more aggressive versions of the Emira. As I mentioned before, I think they're really trying to stay true to what Lotus is really all about. I mean, ever since the beginning, Colin Chapman always said, you know, to add speed, performance, add lightness. So I really think that keeping in mind the stricter regulations of today, the Emira really does kind of bring that philosophy across into a modern day product. I mean, there's so many regulations manufacturers have to make sure that they adhere to. It's harder. It's getting harder and harder to create, you know, lightweight sports cars. That said, it really does feel like a very, very light car. It's nimble through the corners. The hydraulic rack is absolutely phenomenal. Aside from the little plastic noises that is coming from the trim, I'm not sure what that is about. But the feel itself is on point, as you would expect a Lotus product to be. And I'm very, very glad they did not go with an electric rack. Alright, so I've spent about an hour driving the car up and down the roads here outside of Nikko, and just kind of understanding what this new evolution of the Lotus sports car is supposed to be. And it's pretty evident that Lotus is really trying to create something that is more approachable by everyone. I'm sure eventually, you know, more focused cars will come out, like Exige type versions where, you know, it's all focused towards track work or, you know, fast road driving. What the Emira does really well is be a very good mid-engine GT car. And especially this model here with the 3.5 liter V6. So it's a Toyota unit out of the Camry, and they've added a supercharger on top, so it makes about 400 horsepower. And that's channeled through a 6-speed automatic transmission, which does a really good job of attempting to be a dual clutch, but it isn't. It has an interesting clutch slippage as the car takes off. It doesn't really feel like a torque converter. It was confusing me at the beginning. I thought it was like some kind of DSG transmission, but you do get the DSG on the 2-liter turbo AMG engine version of the car, which will be sampling hopefully in a couple of months. That also comes with a manual, so quite keen to kind of do a more bigger video, maybe for the bigger channel, for the main channel. So for this kind of intro into the Emira, I just wanted to kind of spend a bit of time and vlog more about the car rather than do like a proper piece. But you know, that said, let's take a look at the details that really make this car up. And it's really cool to actually see the car in production, guys. I actually got to shoot the prototype version of this car 2 years ago when it was shipped over from the UK to Tokyo for the Auto Salon, and we got to bring it at some really cool venues in Tokyo at night to kind of get some pictures for Lotus and their social accounts. And it's good to see that the car basically hasn't really changed since then. It's still very much what that car looked like 2 years ago. So design wise, it's a very, very pretty car. I think they nailed it pretty much 100%. I really do like how it just sits so square on those massive 20-inch wheels. Yes, this is a Lotus with 20-inch wheels, and impressively it runs really, really wide tires. So 245s up front. It's on some Goodyear Eagle F1s, and pretty much time attack rubber back here because these are 295s at the back. And the result is basically a car that is just overgripped, not in a bad way, but like I said, you know, they're definitely trying to make a car that's easier to handle, easier to drive, and kind of easier to push through the corners. Even today, it's actually raining right now. I got to drive on a mix of, you know, wet and dry and a combination of both, and it doesn't really move around unless you're obviously pushing really hard. But it's very playful, and there's enough power to keep you going. It's fun. Of course, the transmission would be amazing if it was like a DSG, much quicker. The slush box kind of tries to do too many things at the same time. So it's basically a good choice for those that want to kind of use the car on a daily basis. I think it really makes sense for that. And if you have a look here at the back, you can see that supercharger sitting on top of the V6 engine. And you know what? Let me actually open up the trunk for you. So behind the engine you actually get a little bit of luggage space for camera gear for me. The only drawback here is that you will literally cook all your equipment because it gets really, really hot. Do not buy ice cream and put it in the back of an Emira. So there is the engine and supercharger setup. You can actually see that through your driver perspective. In the back mirror you can see the little actuator there, and the throttle is right there. So pretty simple, not much to see. Lots of engine covers kind of hiding the mechanical bits, but definitely a nice setup. So this press card that Lotus Japan has given me is actually the first edition. It retails in Japan for 15.7 million yen, which means that Lotus cars have really begun to go considerably up in price, even in Japan. They're obviously trying to move the brand up market, compete more with sports cars like Porsche with the Boxster and Cayman. So it is what it is. It's an elevated product now. It's definitely better built, better materials. So it's still very much a Lotus. The materials have been a big improvement over the older cars like the Evora and the Exige Elise. There's still some interesting noises coming from trim pieces, especially the steering column makes a strange crackling sound. I'm not sure what that's about. Alright, I think we should probably do some more driving and pass Nikko Town and go up to the lake, Chizenji Lake, get some more seat time in the Emira. So one thing I noticed straight away when I picked up the Emira is just how big it is. So I kind of always struggled with Lotus cars, with the Elise, the Exige, not so much with the Evora, but still it was pretty cramped inside. But this car, I'm even not pushing the seat all the way back. which is the first for me, really. I mean, it's only German cars that allow that kind of adjustability, so it's great to see that they've kept you know, a bit of space for the larger gentleman and also the taller gentleman, because of course you can really kind of stretch out here, which makes for a more comfortable drive. And staying in the whole cabin, it's a really nicely laid out space to be in. It's very simple. I think it will age quite well. You know, every time you keep things quite simple, they tend to last the test of time. The steering wheel I'm not too keen on when they're not round, but you know, it's a matter of taste, really. I think it fits in with the whole design ethos of the car. There's two main screens, so you got a digital cluster here which changes through the three modes. You have touring, sports and track, and then you have this infotainment here, which thankfully does not have a built-in navigation. It uses Apple CarPlay or Android Auto to have the maps to show up there, so really good move from Lotus there. That said, it's a bit laggy, it's a bit incoherent design-wise, but it's a nice place to be in, very comfortable, very minimalistic, few buttons, everything is where you need it to be, so good job on the design of that. Like, it's almost surprising for me that I'm at the wheel of a Lotus, but it's so civilized almost. I've had some interesting experiences with Elises and Exiges, you know, where you're really fighting the car around the corners, and that's a good thing, of course, but you know, the Emira really does have the more kind of grown-up approach to that, and I can't wait until some people start fiddling around with these cars. And I'm guessing the car to start modifying will be the AMG 2-liter turbo-powered variant, which of course has either the 8-speed DSG of an A45 AMG or the manual transmission. So I think you really need to kind of address some of the details to kind of perfect what Lotus has created with this car. I think a nice aftermarket exhaust, a bit more modern and programmable electronics to allow a bit more power and torque to be developed, a good suspension setup, nice wheels and brakes, and I think you will have a really capable Touge time attack circuit, possibly highway car. Alright, so we made it up to Nikko with the Emira and all the way up to Lake Touge. It's an incredible 20 degrees, which for July is absolutely crazy because we left Tokyo today, I think it was like 36, so it's a hell of a nice climate change for the day. Always a nice little town to come and visit in summer or winter, and the drive up, as always, is the fun part. The Emira was phenomenal. Of course, you know, you can't really push hard on that road. Hiro Hazaka has obviously been featured in Initial D, so a lot of people kind of attack it hard or used to, so you know, you gotta make sure that you don't do crazy stuff. The cool thing is, of course, it's 2 lanes up and 1 lane down, so 1 way up and 1 way down. It's a really cool approach to doing a mountain pass. I always thought it was pretty cool, and the Emira was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it, going through the corners. I love to kind of use the lanes more, but again, you know, it's a regular road, you can't really do that stuff. But it just goes to prove that it is the perfect sports car for daily use, long distance driving, and also the occasional Touge. Really had a lot of fun with the Emira. Hope you enjoyed kind of joining me on this little test drive. Again, massive thanks to Lotus Japan for handing me the keys to this really cool, special new car. But before I say bye-bye for this video, I just wanted to show you something that's always parked up here in Chuzenjiko. It belongs to the Maple restaurant here. It's this Mercedes Unimog. I think this is like probably the first generation of the Unimog, and I guess they use it in winter to clear snow. It has the attachment up here in the front for various accessories like snowplows and so on, and it's such a cool thing to see. I just love these. Makes the G-Wagon look absolutely useless. So sick.